poor girl sees a young billionaire in a Ferrari and asks, "Wouldn't you like to marry my mom?" But when she shows him a picture, he's shocked and begins to cry. Julia woke to the sound of her alarm and silenced it quickly. 5:30 in the morning. The first rays of sun barely filtered through the curtains of the tiny apartment she shared with Lily. Moving carefully not to wake her daughter, she saw the little girl's peaceful face and brown hair spread across the pillow. Another day, she thought, stretching. A day like any other. In the kitchen, she prepared coffee in an almost automatic routine. Her eyes were still heavy with sleep, but her hands knew what to do. Sometimes she wondered when she had become so methodical. Maybe when Lily was born. Maybe when she realized she was on her own. The old coffee maker was loud. Julia checked the clock. She had 20 minutes to get herself ready before waking Lily. In front of the bathroom mirror, she took in the traces that time had left. She was no longer the 20-year-old girl with huge dreams. She was a 26-year-old woman with dark circles under her eyes, a tight schedule, and a mission that filled her whole heart: to raise Lily as best she could. "Mommy," came the sleepy voice of the little girl from the bathroom doorway. "Hey, princess, you're up early today," Julia smiled, crouching to her daughter's level. "Want to help me make breakfast?" As Lily carefully poured cereal into a bowl, fully focused on the task as if it were the most important job in the world, Julia watched her with a mix of love and concern. The same blue eyes, the same smile. She looked so much like him. On the other side of the city, in a penthouse overlooking the skyline, Nathan Blackwood woke to a discreet, high-tech alarm at 6 sharp. The sun was already pouring through the tall glass windows, revealing an elegant yet empty apartment. Nathan got up from the king-size bed where he'd slept alone again, like so many other nights. He picked up his phone. Already there were dozens of emails, messages, and scheduled appointments. Blackwood Enterprises never stopped. In the marble bathroom, he studied his reflection, 30 years old, a billionaire, single. Magazines called him the country's most eligible bachelor. He sighed deeply. If only they knew how empty it felt. His assistant had already laid out his day: meetings, lunch with investors, a new product launch, dinner with some model or actress whose name he would likely forget by tomorrow. As he got ready, a familiar sensation washed over him, that unease, as if something were missing, like a hollow space no successful deal or stunning woman could fill. "Must be lack of coffee," he muttered, trying to dismiss the thought. By 7:15, Julia was already dropping Lily off at Sunshine Elementary School. The little girl squeezed her in a tight hug before running inside, where her teacher greeted her with a warm smile. "Bye, Mommy. Love you." "Love you too, sweetheart. Have a great day." Julia watched her daughter disappear inside, feeling that familiar tightness in her chest. Then she glanced at her watch. She had exactly 22 minutes to get to work. Café Lumière was a 15-minute walk from Lily's school. It was small and cozy, popular with college students, local artists, and neighborhood workers. Nothing glamorous, but Julia loved the atmosphere and the people. "Morning, Mark," she greeted the cafe's owner, a kind man in his 60s who'd given her a chance when no one else would hire a single mother with no experience. "Julia, you're early today." Mark smiled, handing over the blue apron she wore every day. "Got lucky with traffic," she joked, tying on the apron. Within seconds, she was already making coffee for the day's first customers. At 9 in the morning, Nathan was in his first meeting of the day. Suited executives watched him with a mix of admiration and fear as he scrutinized the figures on the screen. "These results are mediocre," he said calmly but firmly. "Redo the projections. We need at least 15% growth next quarter." Despite his demands, Nathan rarely raised his voice. He didn't need to. His presence alone drove people to do their utmost. After the meeting, he stared out the window of his office. The city stretched beneath him. He'd accomplished so much at such a young age. His father would have been proud, had he lived to see it. Still, something felt missing. Julia's day flew by in a blur of cappuccino orders, latte art, and quick chats with regulars. She tried to keep smiling even when her feet hurt and the hours dragged. At 3, she thanked Mark for letting her leave an hour early. It was Lily's spring presentation at school, and Julia wouldn't miss it for the world. Seated among other parents, phone in hand, Julia felt her heart swell with pride as Lily took the small stage, dressed like a flower for the spring play. "She looks just like you," another parent remarked. Julia smiled, though she was thinking, "She's got his eyes." Nathan cancelled his business dinner. He wasn't in the mood for it. Instead, he climbed into his Ferrari and drove aimlessly through the city. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe peace, maybe something to fill the void. He stopped outside a small cafe. He'd never been there before, nor anywhere quite like it. It wasn't his usual style, but something drew him in. Café Lumière, he read on its modest sign. For a moment, he thought about going in. But his phone rang, another business problem only he could fix. He started the car again. The cafe would have to wait for another day. Julia put Lily to bed at 8:30, after a bath and a bedtime story. The girl fell asleep almost instantly, worn out from her performance. On the small living room couch with a cup of tea in hand, Julia allowed herself a moment to relax. She turned on the TV, landing on a business segment showing a suited man's photograph. Nathan Blackwood, the young billionaire who's revolutionized the market. Julia froze. The mug almost slipped from her grip. It was him, older, more serious, but unmistakable. Lily's father. A man who never knew he had a daughter. The man Julia had never fully managed to forget. She quickly turned the TV off, her heart pounding. How silly. Nathan Blackwood wouldn't cross her path again. He belonged to a different world, one of luxury and power she'd left behind. Tomorrow would be just another day like any other, or so she believed. Morning arrived, bright and warm. Julia got to Café Lumière at 7 sharp and as usual, to help open up. She brought Lily along since the weekend babysitter had called in sick the night before. "Lily, you'll stay at that little table outside, okay?" Julia knelt to her child's level. "I brought your coloring books and pencils. Stay where I can see you through the window." "Can I draw something for Uncle Mark too?" Lily asked, adjusting her pigtails. "Sure, he'll love it." Mark, busy arranging pastries, beamed at them both. "I promise to be the best helper ever," Lily declared, already taking out her drawing tools. Julia kissed the top of her head. "I know you will, princess." The morning was busier than usual. A group of tourists had found the place, and Julia hardly had time to breathe between orders. She sneaked glances at Lily, who was quietly drawing at her little table outside. "2 cappuccinos and 1 latte for table 8, called Mike, the other server, as he hurried past her. Julia sighed and got to work on the drinks. She needed to leave by 4 to take Lily to her routine doctor's appointment. Until then, it would be a marathon. Outside, Lily was lost in a world of colors and shapes, drawing pictures of her mom, herself, and the cafe, their small family. Sometimes she waved at passers-by she recognized. Then she heard a distinctive hum. It was smooth and powerful, making her look up. Across the street, a gleaming red car was parking under the morning sun. Lily's eyes went wide. It was the prettiest car she'd ever seen, red like her pencil, shiny like the fairy tale princess stories her mother read at bedtime. Without a second thought, forgetting her promise to stay put, Lily dropped her pencils and crossed the narrow sidewalk. The car had stopped outside a convenience store on the opposite side. She approached quietly, awestruck. Nathan hadn't planned to stop in that area. He was on his way to a Saturday meeting. Problems with foreign investors that shouldn't really have been his concern, but he'd only had an energy drink for breakfast, and he was starting to feel hungry. Spotting a small convenience store, he decided on a quick break. He'd grab something to eat on the go and respond to a few emails. 5 minutes, tops. He parked the Ferrari, checked his watch, still had a bit of time, and stepped out. He was distracted by his phone, replying to an urgent message when he felt someone watching him. Glancing down, he saw a 5-year-old girl with brown pigtails staring at his car with fascination. "Hi," he said, pocketing his phone. The girl stepped back shyly. "Is your car real?" she asked, her bright blue eyes wide. Nathan laughed, relaxing. "It is. It's called a Ferrari." "It looks like a cartoon," she observed, walking around it with small steps. "So red. They come in that color originally." Nathan explained, surprised at how easily he was chatting with a child. "Can I touch it?" Lily extended her hand hesitantly. "Go ahead." Nathan watched as she carefully placed her small hand on the shiny hood. "Are you rich?" she asked, looking at him with innocent curiosity. Nathan was speechless for a moment, disarmed by her straightforwardness. "Well, I work a lot," he finally replied. "What's your name?" "Lily. I'm 5. She held up 5 fingers proudly. "And you?" "Nathan. I'm 30. Lily frowned, as though trying to grasp such a big number. "That's old," she concluded, making him laugh again. "A little," he conceded. The girl glanced at the convenience store, then back at Nathan. "You gonna buy candy?" "Nah, just a sandwich. I'm kind of in a hurry." "My mom makes the best sandwiches in the world," Lily announced. "She works right there." She pointed to the cafe across the street. "And she makes little pictures in people's coffee, flowers and hearts." "Your mum sounds very talented," Nathan commented, looking toward the cafe, though he couldn't see inside from that distance. "Shouldn't you be with her?" Lily bit her lip, an adorable gesture of guilt. "I'm supposed to be coloring at my table. I saw your car and came over." "But just for a minute. I think you'd better get back before she worries," Nathan suggested. The girl didn't budge. Instead, she studied Nathan as if assessing him. "Do you have a girlfriend?" The question threw him off balance. "No," he admitted. "My mum doesn't have a boyfriend either." Lily informed him matter-of-factly, as if sharing a major secret. "She says she doesn't need a man, but I think she's sad sometimes." Nathan didn't know how to respond. There was a disarming sweetness to the girl's concern for her mother. "Would you marry my mom?" she asked abruptly. Nathan nearly choked. "What?" "You could marry her," Lily pressed on, excited by her brilliant idea. "Then she wouldn't be sad, and you could take me for rides in this red car." "Lily, I don't even know your mum," he said, trying not to laugh at the child's logic. "But you can get to know her. She's really pretty." Lily pulled a small, colorful plastic frame from her backpack. "Look, here she is." Nathan took it politely, a polite smile on his face. But the moment his eyes focused on the picture, his world seemed to freeze. The smile vanished. His heart skipped a beat. In the frame, a young woman was smiling, holding a simple bouquet, soft brown hair, expressive eyes, and that smile he knew better than anything else in the world. Julia, his Julia. "Are you okay, mister?" Lily's voice seemed to come from a great distance. Nathan couldn't answer right away. Memories hit him like waves. Julia laughing as they dove into the lake near campus. Julia asleep on his shoulder during a late-night study session. Julia crying when he left to care for his ailing father, promising he'd be back soon. A promise he hadn't kept. "That's your mom," he finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. Lily nodded proudly. "She's pretty, right? That picture was on my birthday. I turned 5. She tilted her head, noticing Nathan's expression. "You look weird." Nathan blinked, trying to regain composure. He handed the frame back with trembling hands. "Your mom, Julia, she works at that cafe." "Yeah." Lily looked surprised. "How do you know her name?" Nathan's mind was racing. Julia, right there, just a stone's throw away, after all these years, with a daughter, a 5-year-old daughter. 5 years. The math formed instantly in his mind, a suspicion growing, nearly knocking the wind out of him. "Lily, who's your dad?" The words escaped before he could stop them. The little girl shrugged. "I don't have one. It's just me and Mommy, but that's okay. I have Uncle Mark and Aunt Rose, and now you," she beamed. "So, will you marry Mommy, please?" Nathan opened his mouth to answer, but was cut off by a voice calling from across the street. "Lily!" "My goodness, where did you go?" An older man stepped out of the cafe, scanning around anxiously. He spotted the girl and waved, visibly relieved. "I gotta go," Lily said, slipping the photo back into her backpack. "That's Uncle Mark. Mommy's gonna be mad I crossed the street." She started to leave but paused to look back. "Will you come visit me at the cafe? We can draw together." Nathan, still reeling from the discovery, barely managed a reply. "Yes, I'll come soon." Lily grinned and ran back to the cafe, where Mark stood, arms crossed, ready to scold her. Nathan stood there, watching the girl vanish, her blue eyes, his eyes, the timing of her birth lining up exactly with his departure, the unmistakable resemblance. Julia was there, just steps away, and with her maybe a piece of his life he hadn't known existed. Forgetting his meeting entirely, Nathan got back into his car. He needed time to think, to process what he'd just uncovered. Everything had changed in a matter of minutes. He cast one last look at the cafe before driving off. He wouldn't go in. Not today. He had to prepare himself, because now he was almost certain that the life he'd built, the empire he'd created, meant nothing compared to the possibility unfolding before him. A family. Nathan couldn't sleep. Meeting Lily had turned his life upside down. Sitting in his penthouse office, city lights twinkling below, he rotated a glass of whiskey between his fingers. Untouched. It wasn't a drink he needed, but answers. Julia. After 6 years, he'd found a trace of her in the most unexpected way. And Lily. A 5-year-old girl with his blue eyes. The math was too simple to ignore. The coincidence, impossible. He picked up the phone and called Sam, his head of security and right-hand man. "I need information on someone," he said the moment Sam answered. "Right now, sir," came the sleepy voice on the other end. It was well past midnight. "Yes, now. Her name is Julia Martins." A pause. "And her daughter, Lily." A part of him felt guilty about this. Investigating Julia felt like an invasion. But he had to understand. That child, Lily, those blue eyes. His growing suspicion was impossible to dismiss. Impossible. Julia would have told him. She wouldn't hide something like that. Right? The next morning, Julia brewed coffee while Lily ate cereal, chattering excitedly about the man with the red car she'd met. "He said he'll visit me at the cafe. We can draw together." Julia smiled absently. "That's great, honey. But remember what we said about talking to strangers. He's not a stranger. He's nice." Lily paused mid-bite. "And he has eyes like me." Julia froze, her mug hovering in the air. "What do you mean?" "Blue," Lily answered simply. "Not many people have the same blue eyes I do." Julia placed the mug down carefully, trying to steady her nerves. "Lily, what did he look like? Did he tell you his name?" "Yep, Nathan. And he had a fancy red car. A Ferrari." Lily pronounced the name as if it were magical. "He's rich and handsome, like a prince." Julia felt a chill. Nathan, an expensive car. Those blue eyes her daughter had inherited. It couldn't be. This city was big, but not that big. After years of avoiding any chance of meeting him. "Mommy, you look weird. Are you okay?" Julia forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just thinking about work. Let's get you ready for school. We don't want to be late." As she helped Lily prepare for the day, Julia couldn't shake the feeling that the fragile world she'd built was about to come crashing down. Sam entered Nathan's office carrying a folder. "What did you find?" Nathan asked, his voice tense with anticipation. "Julia Martins, age 26. She's worked at Café Lumière for 5 years, rents a small apartment on the east side. Rent is up to date, no major debts. Daughter Lily, age 5. Attends Sunshine Elementary. There's no father listed on the birth certificate." Nathan's heart pounded. 5 years old. Lily's birth date. Sam checked his notes. October 12th. She'll turn 6 in a few months. Nathan did the math. If Lily was born in October, that meant March. She would have been conceived in March, exactly when he and Julia were still together. "Anything else about the girl's father?" Nathan asked, unable to hide his anxiety. "No official record. Julia seems to have raised her alone from birth." Nathan dismissed Sam and turned his chair toward the window. Memories washed over him, that last month with Julia before everything fell apart. 6 years ago. "Your father's sick, Nathan. He needs you," his mother said desperately on the phone. Nathan looked at Julia, sleeping peacefully beside him in the small apartment they'd shared while he finished college. Those had been the best months of his life. "I'll be there tomorrow," he said, hanging up. His father's company was in crisis. As the only heir, Nathan had to take charge, Temporarily, he told himself, just until his father got better. "I have to go," he told Julia the next morning. "Family matters. I'll be back in a week, tops." Julia hugged him tightly. "I'll miss you." "It's only a week," he smiled, kissing her. "When I get back, we'll have that talk, remember?" Julia smiled, her eyes shining. They'd been talking about the future, about making it official. Nathan had even picked out a ring. 1 week stretched into a month. His father's health deteriorated. The company was on the brink of collapse. His calls with Julia got shorter, less frequent. "I don't know when I'll be back," he admitted, exhausted after 16-hour meetings. "I understand," Julia said softly. "Your father needs you." He heard a change in her tone. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just tired." A pause. "Nathan, we need to talk about something important." "I can't right now, Julia. I'm heading into another meeting. I'll call you tomorrow. I promise." But he didn't call. His father took a turn for the worse, and Nathan spent the night at the hospital. When he finally tried calling 2 days later, Julia's phone was disconnected. He sent messages, emails, no reply. At last, 3 weeks after that, he found a moment to return to their apartment. It was empty. Julia had left. No forwarding address. He tried to locate her, but then his father died. Taking over the company became his absolute priority. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and the pain of losing Julia became a wound that never fully healed. Eventually, Nathan convinced himself that she'd left because she was tired of waiting, that she hadn't loved him enough to understand his obligations. It was easier that way. In the present, Nathan studied a photo of Lily that Sam had found. Those blue eyes were the same ones he saw in the mirror every day. "Sir," Sam's voice brought him back to reality. "Is there anything else you need?" Nathan took a deep breath. "Yes, I want to know everything about Julia's routine. Don't interfere, just observe. And I need a present." "A present, sir?" "For a 5-year-old girl. Something special." Julia was serving coffee to her regulars at Café Lumière, still replaying her morning conversation with Lily. Nathan, after all this time, could he really have shown up by chance and spoken to Lily without knowing who she was? "Julia, are you okay?" Mark asked, noticing she seemed distracted. "You look worried." "I'm fine," she said. "It's just, Lily mentioned talking to a stranger yesterday near the cafe." "Oh yes, I saw when I went to get her. A man in a suit, fancy car," Mark recalled, frowning. "I scolded her for crossing the street alone." "Did she say his name?" Julia tried to sound casual. "I don't remember. Why, do you know him?" Julia hesitated. "Maybe. From a long time ago. Well, he seemed polite enough. And Lily, you know how she is, makes friends with everybody." "Yes, she does," Julia smiled, trying to hide her nerves. The rest of the day passed in typical fashion. Julia served customers, made lattes, chatted pleasantly. But inside, she was on high alert. Each time the door chime rang, her heart jumped, afraid or perhaps hoping to see Nathan. While wiping a table by the window, her attention was drawn to a car slowly passing by, a red car, a Ferrari. She held her breath, watching as the vehicle disappeared around the corner. He was close, maybe looking for her. The life she'd carefully built suddenly felt as fragile as a house of cards, and the wind was picking up. 3 days had passed since Nathan discovered Julia through his run-in with Lily. 3 days of planning, of carefully thinking about what he would say when he finally saw her. 3 days of watching the cafe from a distance, gathering the courage to enter. That morning, Nathan told his driver he wouldn't need him. He drove himself to Café Lumière, parking the Ferrari a few blocks away. He wanted to be discreet, something unusual for a man who normally turned heads wherever he went. He wore casual clothes, jeans, a blue shirt, no tie, no suits today. He wanted to look like the Nathan of old, not the billionaire he'd become. Stopping in front of the cafe, his heart hammered in his chest. Through the window, he saw Julia serving customers, smiling a smile he'd never forgotten. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, her face more mature, but she was unmistakably Julia. "Now or never," he whispered to himself, pushing the door open. The bell tinkled softly, announcing his arrival. Julia had her back turned, working the espresso machine. "Good morning, I'll be right with you," she said automatically, not turning around. Nathan stood still, just absorbing the sound of her voice. 6 years had passed, but it could have been yesterday. "I'm in no rush," he replied. Julia froze. The machine whirred to a stop. Slowly, very slowly, she turned. Their eyes met for the first time in 6 years. Time seemed to suspend. The cafe, the customers, the world itself melted away for a moment. It was just the two of them, locked in a moment where past and present collided. Nathan. His name left her lips in a near whisper. He tried to smile, but his lips trembled. "Hi, Julia." She blinked several times, as if confirming she wasn't hallucinating. Her face was pale, her fingers gripping the edge of the counter. "How?" She couldn't finish the question. "Can I sit?" Nathan gestured to an empty table in the corner. Julia looked around, suddenly remembering where she was. Some customers were watching, curious. Mark stared from behind the counter, concerned. "I'm working," she said, her voice regaining some composure. "I can wait. Just a coffee, for now." Julia gave a stiff nod, turning back to the machine. Nathan noted the slight tremor in her hands as she prepared the drink. He headed to the corner table and sat, never taking his eyes off her. When she brought the coffee over, she avoided eye contact. "Julia," he kept his voice low. "I didn't expect to find you this way." "Me neither," she said, her voice barely audible. "Why are you here?" "I met Lily a few days ago. She told me her mother worked here." Nathan paused. "I had no idea it would be you." Julia eyed him warily. "You didn't know?" "Not until she showed me your picture." He took a sip of coffee. "It was a shock, I imagine," she murmured. She seemed about to say something else, but stopped. "I need to get back to work." Before Nathan could respond, the back door swung open and Lily bounced in, backpack in hand. "Mommy, Uncle Mark picked me up early because Ms. Carol got sick and—" She stopped short upon seeing Nathan. Her eyes lit up in recognition and excitement. "The man with the red car, you came back?" Nathan smiled, genuinely happy to see her. "Hi, Lily." The child ran over, no trace of her earlier shyness. "You came to visit like you promised." "A promise is a promise," he said. Julia watched this scene, torn between nervousness and surprise. Lily's ease with Nathan was disconcerting. "Lily, you shouldn't be talking to Julia caught herself. "You already know Mr. Blackwood." "Yes, he has the coolest car ever." Lily turned to Nathan. "Did you bring the red car today?" "I parked a bit further away," he answered, amused by her enthusiasm. "Oh," she looked disappointed for a moment, then pulled a drawing out of her backpack. "Look what I made in school today." Nathan took the paper, touched by the gesture. It showed a man next to a red car, both smiling widely. "That's you and your car," Lily explained proudly. "Mommy, look at what I drew for the car man." Julia approached reluctantly, glancing at the picture over Nathan's shoulder. The closeness made her catch the familiar scent of his cologne, just like years ago. "It's really nice, Lily," she said, trying to sound steady. "But you shouldn't be drawing during lessons." "It was art class, Mommy," Lily said, rolling her eyes as if it were obvious. Nathan laughed, and Julia found herself smiling briefly. Mark called her from behind the counter, snapping her out of the moment. "Julia, we need more coffee beans." "Coming," she replied, grateful for the excuse to walk away. She looked at Nathan. "Keep an eye on her, please." Nathan nodded, surprised by her implied trust. Alone with Lily, he suddenly felt nervous. How did one talk to a child who might be his daughter, yet viewed him as just a friendly stranger? "So, you like to draw?" he asked, going with the obvious. "It's my favorite thing in the whole world." Lily rummaged in her backpack, pulling out more drawings. "I have tons. Wanna see?" "I'd love to." The next 20 minutes were a flurry of Lily proudly showing each drawing, explaining the stories behind them in great detail. Nathan listened intently, fascinated by every bit of her personality that she revealed. From the other side of the cafe, Julia watched as she worked. The ease with which Nathan interacted with Lily, the way he listened with genuine interest, was unsettling in how natural it seemed. When she finally managed a short break, Julia returned to the table. She found Nathan helping Lily with a new drawing. demonstrating how to give a car more realistic perspective. "You draw really well," she commented, surprising even herself. Nathan looked up, meeting her gaze. "I've always enjoyed it. Remember when I drew that map for our trip to the lake?" The mention of the past made Julia's heart tighten. "I remember," she said quietly. Lily glanced between them, curious. "Have you known each other a long time?" "Yes," Nathan answered before Julia could. "We were friends in college." "Wow," Lily's eyes widened. "That was ages ago. You two are really old." Julia couldn't help but laugh. "Thanks, Lily. That's exactly what every mother wants to hear." The moment of levity eased the tension a bit. Nathan smiled, and for a second it was as if the years hadn't passed. "Mommy, can we take Nathan for ice cream, please?" Lily clasped her hands in a plea. Julia hesitated. Part of her wanted to run away, to protect the secret she had kept so long. But another part knew the conversation was inevitable. "I have to work until 5, Lily." "I can wait," Nathan offered. "I have some emails to catch up on, if it's not too much trouble." Lily's hopeful expression was hard to resist. Julia exhaled, relenting. "Fine, but just a quick ice cream after work. Then we need to go home." "Yay!" Lily cheered. "I'll show him our favorite ice cream place." The rest of the afternoon dragged for Julia. Nathan stayed in the cafe working on his laptop, occasionally chatting with Lily when she approached him. Their ease together was both comforting and alarming. Mark pulled Julia aside during a lull. "Who is he?" he asked quietly. "Someone from my past," she said evasively. "The same past that resulted in Lily." Mark was sharp. Julia just nodded, unable to elaborate. "Be careful," he advised gently. "He seems nice, but—" "I know," Julia cut in. "Don't worry." At 5, her shift ended. She changed out of her uniform into casual clothes, ignoring the growing nervousness inside. Nathan was waiting by the door, chatting with Lily about dinosaurs, her newest obsession. "Ready?" he asked as she approached. "Yes, way," she answered, though she didn't feel ready at all. The three of them left together, Lily in the middle, holding both of their hands. To any passerby, they looked like a normal family enjoying a day out. The thought made Julia's stomach flip. The ice cream shop was a short walk away. Lily talked non-stop, telling Nathan about her friends, her favorite TV shows, and her favorite color. He listened attentively, asking questions that showed genuine interest. "How did you meet my mom?" Lily asked suddenly, catching them both off guard. Nathan looked at Julia, unsure how to answer. "We went to the same college," Julia said, sticking to the simple truth. "Were you boyfriend and girlfriend?" Lily's knack for directness was astonishing. "For a while," Nathan admitted. "A long, long time ago." "Why did you break up?" "Lily, that's a very personal question," Julia admonished her gently. "It's all right," Nathan said. He turned to Lily and answered carefully, "Sometimes, even if two people really care about each other, life takes them in different directions." "And now, life brought you back together," Lily said happily, like in the stories Mommy read to her. Nathan and Julia shared a quick look, neither wanting to dampen the child's innocent optimism. At the ice cream shop, Lily ordered strawberry with chocolate topping, Julia picked lemon, and Nathan went for mint chocolate. Sitting at a corner table, they watched Lily devour her ice cream until it smeared all over her face. "She looks like you," Nathan commented softly. Julia felt her heart race. "You think so?" "She furrows her brow when she's focused." "Exactly like you." "She has her own quirks," Julia said cautiously, trying not to reveal too much. "How long have you worked at the cafe?" Nathan asked, changing the subject. 5 years, since Lily was a baby." "Mark seems like a good boss." "He's more than that. He gave me a chance when no one else would." Julia paused. "It's not easy finding work as a single mom with no experience." Nathan took that in, his face serious. "Must have been tough." "It was at first." She glanced at Lily, eyes filled with love, "but worth every second." "Julia," Nathan lowered his voice, "why did you vanish like that? No words, no explanation, you just disappeared?" She looked away. "Not here, Nathan." "Not in front of her." He nodded in understanding. When, then? I'm not sure talking about the past is a good idea. We need to talk eventually. Why? What would it change? Nathan stared at her. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Lily interrupted the tense moment, raising her empty spoon. Done! Now can we go to the park? Julia hesitated. It's getting late, Lily. Please, just a little while. I want to show Nathan the swings. The child's pleading blue eyes, so reminiscent of Nathan's, were hard to resist. Fine, Julia relented, but only half an hour. The park was nearly empty at that hour. Lily immediately ran to the swings, leaving the adults behind on a nearby bench. She's got so much energy, Nathan commented, watching her. She's been like that since she was a baby, always moving. He wanted to ask more about Lily's early years, about all the moments he'd missed, but he held back, respecting Julia's boundaries. How about you? How's your life been? Julia asked unexpectedly. Hectic. When my dad died, I had to take over the company overnight. Spent the first few years just keeping it afloat. And you succeeded, apparently. Yes. I transformed the business, expanded it. We now have offices in 12 countries. He paused. But something's still missing. Julia looked at him, waiting. All that success, the money, the recognition, sometimes it feels empty. Nathan stared at the horizon. Especially when I go home to an empty apartment at the end of the day. His confession took Julia by surprise. She'd pictured Nathan surrounded by luxury and women, reveling in his billionaire lifestyle without a second thought. I thought you'd moved on, she admitted softly. Maybe even gotten married. Never found anyone who... He didn't finish, but the look he gave her said it all. Nathan, don't... Mommy, Nathan, look what I can do, Lily called from the top of the slide, saving them both from the moment. They got up and walked toward her. While Lily showed off her playground moves, Nathan leaned closer to Julia. We need to talk properly with no interruptions. Julia exhaled. I know. It's complicated. Life's complicated. Doesn't mean we avoid it. She nodded slowly. Tomorrow, after Lily goes to sleep, you can come to our apartment. Thank you, he said, grateful for the chance. When dusk settled in, Julia called Lily. The little girl pouted but accepted it was time to go, cheered by the promise that Nathan might visit again. Will you come back? Lily asked, looking up at him hopefully. He knelt to her eye level. I promise, if your mom allows it. Lily turned to Julia, who nodded reluctantly. Then it settled. Lily impulsively hugged Nathan, catching him off guard. He hugged her back, a sudden tightness in his chest. On the way home, Lily yawned repeatedly, exhaustion kicking in. When they arrived at their modest apartment building, she was almost asleep on her feet. Here's our address, Julia said, jotting it on a small piece of paper. Apartment 302. After 8, Nathan took it, his fingers brushing hers briefly. I'll be there. Good night, Nathan, Lily said sleepily, waving. Good night, little one, he replied with a smile. Julia and Lily disappeared inside, leaving Nathan on the sidewalk. He stood there for a moment, watching them go, feeling like his life had changed forever. Tomorrow, he'd get answers. Tomorrow, he'd learn the truth. But tonight, he allowed himself the joy of reuniting, not just with Julia, but with a possibility he had never even considered before, the possibility of a family. 2 weeks had passed since their reunion. Nathan had settled into a new routine that might seem strange to anyone who knew him. A high-powered businessman, suddenly making time at least 3 times a week to drop by a small cafe. On a sunny afternoon, Nathan pushed open the door of Café Lumière, the now familiar bell jingling overhead. He carried a brightly wrapped package. Several customers recognized him and greeted him politely, used to his regular visits. Nathan, Lily shrieked from her corner, where she was drawing. She ran up to him. You came. I promised, didn't I? He grinned, kneeling to her level. I brought you something. Lily's eyes shone with anticipation as she opened the bag. Inside was a children's dinosaur book, her latest obsession, and a small stuffed triceratops. Wow, she gasped, hugging the plushie. It's just like the one in the book you got me last week. I figured they could keep each other company. Nathan said, clearly pleased by her excitement. From behind the counter, Julia watched with complicated emotions. On one hand, natural maternal protectiveness. On the other, a sense of completeness seeing the two of them together. "You spoil her," she said, as Nathan approached to order his usual coffee. "I'm sorry," he replied, though he didn't look sorry at all. "I couldn't resist when I saw the book. She told me she loves dinosaurs. That's her theme this week. Last week it was unicorns, remember?" Nathan chuckled. "Yes, and I got a unicorn drawing with a rainbow horn. I had it framed in my office." Julia raised an eyebrow. "You framed her drawing?" "Of course. It's the first present she ever gave me." The sincerity in his tone was impossible to ignore. Julia's heart fluttered. The ease with which Nathan was fitting into their lives sometimes scared her. It was as though he had always been there, waiting to fill a void left years ago. "Here's your coffee," she said, avoiding his eyes. "The usual." "Thanks." Their fingers brushed briefly as she handed him the cup. "Julia, I was thinking, Saturday's my day off. Maybe I could take Lily to the zoo. If that's okay with you." Julia hesitated. Seeing him at the cafe was one thing. Going out alone with Lily was another level of trust. "I'd be there too," he added quickly, reading her hesitation. "All three of us. I mean, if you can get the day off." "I'm not sure," Julia began. "Please, Mommy," Lily chimed in, clearly having overheard. "I want to see the dinosaurs." "They don't have live dinosaurs at the zoo, Lily," Julia explained patiently. "But they have snakes. Snakes are kind of like little dinosaurs without legs, right, Nathan?" Nathan stifled a laugh. "Something like that. And there are other reptiles too." Julia looked from one to the other, Lily with her pleading expression, and Nathan struggling to keep a straight face. She felt cornered by their combined cuteness. "Fine," she finally relented. "But I decide when we leave." "Yay!" Lily cheered, hugging Nathan's leg. "I'm going to draw every animal we see." The casual way Lily hugged Nathan, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, made Julia's stomach twist with guilt. The child deserved to know the truth. Eventually, "I'm going to get my sketch pad so I can show more dinosaur drawings to Nathan." Lily bounded to her small table in the corner. Left alone momentarily, Nathan turned to Julia, serious. "Thank you. I know it's not easy to trust me after everything." "It's not that I don't trust you," she said quietly. "It's the situation that worries me. How it will end." "Who says it has to end?" Before she could answer, Mark called for her to help with some customers. Nathan returned to Lily, who was eagerly showing him her Jurassic collection. That Thursday, it poured all day. The cafe was nearly empty, except for a few students seeking refuge from the rain. Julia didn't expect Nathan. He'd mentioned an important meeting with foreign investors. So she was surprised when he walked in, soaked despite carrying an umbrella, a bag held protectively under his coat. "Nathan, what happened to your meeting?" "It wrapped up early," he said, shaking out his umbrella. "Where's Lily?" "Still at school. Mark went to get her. They should be back any time now." As if on cue, the back door opened. Lily rushed in wearing a bright yellow raincoat, followed by Mark, who was also shaking out his wet umbrella. "Nathan," she exclaimed on seeing him, "you came, even with the rain." "I promised I would, didn't I?" He smiled, pulling the bag from inside his coat. "I brought something for a rainy day." Lily opened the bag, revealing a dinosaur-themed board game. "Can we play now? If your mom says it's okay?" Both looked at Julia with identical hopeful expressions. She sighed, giving in. "All right. It's quiet today, anyway. You two can use that table in the corner." For the next hour, Julia watched them play. Lily's laughter rang out, and Nathan patiently explained the rules multiple times, complimenting Lily on every small victory. "He really likes her," Mark commented, appearing at Julia's side with an empty tray. "Yes," Julia agreed softly. "That's the problem." "Why?" "I thought it would be good for Lily to have a father figure." Julia didn't respond. How could she explain her fear? Fear that Nathan would discover the truth and feel betrayed, or worse, fear that he'd use his money and power to take Lily away, or maybe a deeper fear, that they'd start to form a real family, only for Nathan to leave eventually, breaking not one but two hearts. Or perhaps the worst fear of all was that he would reject Lily if he learned the truth, though that seemed unlikely now, given the bond they were forming. The rain continued as a slow drizzle by the time Nathan finally left. Lily hugged him tightly. "Don't forget the zoo on Saturday," she reminded him. "Wouldn't miss it." Nathan glanced at Julia. "I'll pick you both up at 9. Julia nodded, torn between caution and the desire to see them both happy, to see all three of them happy. Before leaving, Nathan handed something to Julia, a small package. "What's this?" she asked, surprised. "Open it when you're alone," he said simply. Later at home, once Lily was asleep, Julia opened the package. It was a book, not a children's story, but a novel they'd discussed back in college, one she'd mentioned loving but never got around to buying. Inside was a simple bookmark and a note. "Because not every gift is for Lily. Some things never change, like the fact that you deserve moments of your own." Julia ran her fingers over the words, feeling the wall around her heart begin to crack. Nathan wasn't just easing into Lily's life, he was inching closer to her too. And the most disconcerting part was that a piece of Julia wanted him to. In Nathan's office, among financial reports and contracts, one item stood out: Lily's colorful unicorn drawing, now framed on the wall, a purple unicorn with a rainbow horn, and next to it, a cartoon version of Nathan himself. All smiles. Often, in the middle of stressful conference calls, his gaze would drift to that drawing, and an involuntary smile would grace his face. Nathan didn't fully grasp why he felt so connected to Lily. Perhaps it was her creativity, her zest for life, her charming honesty. He felt an instinct to protect her, something he'd never felt before. There was also the undeniable resemblance to Julia, her gestures, her laugh. Spending time with Lily was like rediscovering a piece of the past he'd thought lost forever. In his mind, they were simply precious moments with an extraordinary child, the daughter of the woman he'd never completely forgotten, unaware that each smile, each hug, each gift was building a bridge to a future he hadn't imagined possible. A future where Dad might finally be part of his identity. The zoo outing had been a hit. Lily talked about the animals all week, showing anyone who'd listen her drawings of giraffes with necks reaching the clouds and snakes that looked like colorful hoses. To Julia, that outing was more than just a weekend excursion. It was the first time in years she allowed herself to let her guard down, if only a little. Watching Nathan interact with Lily, answering her endless questions, hoisting her onto his shoulders to get a better view of the elephants, she saw scenes she'd never dreamed she'd witness. Now, 2 weeks later, Nathan had invited Julia to dinner, just the two of them, no Lily. "We need to talk," he'd said in a serious tone she recognized too well. Julia knew she couldn't avoid the conversation anymore. Mark offered to watch Lily for the evening, welcoming the girl into his home, where his wife Rose was already baking cookies for a movie night she'd promised Lily. And so, on that Friday night, Julia found herself across from Nathan in a small, cozy restaurant, not fancy or extravagant. He seemed to understand her preferences, even after all these years. "Thank you for picking this place," she said, breaking the initial silence. "It's comfortable." "I figured you'd prefer something quiet." Nathan smiled softly. "You still don't like noisy places, right?" She was surprised he remembered that detail. Some things never change, and others change completely. He made a vague gesture, as if referencing everything that had happened. After the waiter brought their drinks and took their orders, silence settled again, thick with unspoken words. "Why did you disappear, Julia?" Nathan finally asked, his voice low and intense. "No goodbye, no explanation. You just vanished." Julia drew a deep breath, staring at the glass in her hands. It was the question she'd feared for 6 years, finally out in the open. "I didn't think you'd come back," she said honestly. "Every day that passed, your calls got shorter and more distant. Your father's company, your family's pressure. It felt like you were heading into a world I'd never belonged to. You could have told me. We could have talked. And what would you have done, Nathan? Walked away from your responsibilities, The company was on the verge of collapse. Your father was dying. Your mother called me, you know. Nathan looked genuinely shocked. My mother called you. When? 2 weeks after you left. She said you were in a critical moment, needed to focus on the family and the business. Julia swallowed. That I was a distraction you couldn't afford. Nathan's expression hardened. She had no right. Maybe not, but was she wrong? Look at you now, the empire you built, the success, the recognition. Would you have achieved all that with me at your side? I was a broke college student with nothing to offer, but... She trailed off. Love, he finished for her. The only thing that actually mattered to me. Silence fell again, charged with emotion. You know what's ironic? Nathan said after a moment. This empire I built, I never really wanted any of it. I took over because I had no choice. My father was dying and there was no one else. Every achievement, every extra million in the bank, none of it filled the emptiness you left. His honesty caused Julia to finally look up at him. She saw a vulnerability in his eyes she'd rarely seen before. I looked for you, he said. For months. I hired private investigators. But you disappeared. New phone, new address, nobody knew where you'd gone. I moved to a different city, she admitted. I needed a fresh start. Because of my mother. Because you thought I wouldn't come back. Julia avoided his gaze. There was more, much more she couldn't tell him yet. Because of many reasons. I was scared, confused, too young to handle it all. And now? He asked gently. Are you still scared? Yes, she admitted. But for different reasons. Nathan reached across the table, placing his hand over hers lightly. The contact sent a familiar shiver through her. I never forgot you, Julia, not for a single day. Finding you now after all this time, it can't be just coincidence. I don't believe in fate, Nathan. I'm not talking about fate, I'm talking about second chances. His bright blue eyes, the same ones Lily had, held hers intently. For us. Julia pulled her hand away gently. It's not that simple. Our lives are completely different now. You're who you are. And I have Lily. Lily is incredible. And you've built a life for yourselves, raising her alone. Nathan paused. But you don't have to be alone anymore. The implication made Julia's heart pound. Fear and hope mixed equally. What exactly are you suggesting? I want to be part of your lives. To know Lily better. To get to know you again. He smiled, a genuine smile that lit his eyes. No pressure, no impossible expectations, just to be here. Why? Your life is so different. International meetings, private jets, mansions. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment and have to budget for weekend ice cream. And in the past few days, he said softly, I've spent more time in that little apartment and eating ice cream than in any boardroom, and I'm happier than I've been in years. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Julia could feel her defenses crumbling, which scared her more than anything. Nathan, she began, unsure how to continue. Thankfully, the waiter arrived with their meals, giving her a moment to regroup. The following Sunday, Julia watched from a park bench as Nathan helped Lily with her new bike, a gift she had initially questioned. But the joy on her daughter's face had made it impossible to refuse. Keep the handlebars straight, Nathan instructed, running alongside her, holding the bike to prevent her from toppling. That's it. Great job. You're doing it. Am I riding on my own? Lily asked, eyes focused. Almost. I'll let go nice and slow, okay? Just keep pedaling. Lily nodded, determined, sticking her tongue out in concentration, a gesture she unwittingly inherited from Nathan. He gradually released his grip until she pedaled unassisted for a few seconds before wobbling. Gotcha! He steadied her before she fell. You did it, Lily. A few seconds by yourself. I did. Her face lit up. Mommy, did you see? I was riding on my own. Julia waved from the bench, smiling. I saw, sweetheart. You were amazing. Let's try again, Nathan encouraged, still calm and patient. This time you'll go even further. It was all so ordinary, so domestic, that Julia's heart ached. This was how it should have been. A father teaching his daughter how to ride a bike. Except Nathan had no idea he was actually the father. That truth weighed more heavily on Julia each passing day, especially after their dinner conversation, where he'd opened up about never forgetting her. Every gesture of kindness, every fatherly moment with Lily, amplified the guilt. He deserved to know. Lily deserved to know. Yet fear paralyzed her. What if Nathan felt betrayed and furious? What if he used his wealth and power to take Lily away? Or worse, what if he rejected Lily once he learned the truth? That last scenario seemed less likely given the bond he and Lily were forming, but irrational fears were hard to quell after years of insecurity. "Mommy, look!" Lily's shout cut through her thoughts. She managed to ride unassisted for nearly 10 yards before stopping. "That's incredible, my love," Julia cheered, genuinely proud. Nathan ran to Lily, lifting her onto his shoulders in celebration. She giggled, delighted by the attention. "You're the most talented cyclist I've ever seen," he announced, making Lily laugh even harder. "That's because you're a great teacher," she replied, ruffling his hair. The familiarity between them was obvious to anyone watching, except, ironically, to Nathan himself. He believed their closeness stemmed simply from Lily's friendly nature and the time they spent together. Approaching the bench, Lily jumped off Nathan's shoulders excitedly. "Can I go to the slide?" "Please, go ahead, but be careful," Julia said. As they watched Lily dash off, Nathan sat next to Julia. "She's a quick learner," he observed, pride in his voice. "She always has been, determined from day one." Julia paused, then added, "Thank you for being so patient with her. I really appreciate it." "No need to thank me. I love spending time with her," he said, smiling warmly. "With both of you." There was an unspoken question in his words, a silent request for permission to continue being part of their life. "I still don't know if this is a good idea," Julia admitted softly. "Our worlds are so different." "Does that really matter?" "Of course it does. You're a billionaire. I work in a cafe. People will talk." "Since when do you care what people think?" Nathan lifted an eyebrow. "The Julia I knew was braver than that." "The Julia you knew didn't have a daughter to protect." Nathan studied her face. "There's more you're not telling me, isn't there?" Julia's heart pounded. Was now the time to reveal the truth? In a public park. "Mommy, Nathan." "Look what I can do," Lily shouted from the top of the slide again, granting Julia another reprieve. For now, the secret would remain buried, but not for much longer. The past was resurfacing, and some truths were too big to stay hidden forever. Julia was busy at work, preparing a special coffee order for a group of executives who had chosen Café Lumière for their morning meeting. Mark was excited about the potential for new customers, since the small cafe rarely got people in suits and ties. "They must have come because of your rich boyfriend," Mark teased as he arranged pastries in the display case. "He's not my boyfriend," Julia automatically replied, though without the old conviction. Over the last few weeks, Nathan had become a constant presence in their lives. Occasional dinners, weekend outings, visits to the cafe. A routine that surprisingly felt almost natural. The cafe's phone rang. Mark answered, and his expression changed at once. "Julia," he called, handing her the phone. "It's Lily's school." Julia's heart slammed in her chest. Calls from school rarely meant good news. She took the receiver with trembling hands. "Hello? Yes, this is Lily's mother?" As she listened, her face lost color. The customers noticed and fell silent, sensing something was wrong. "I'm on my way. Please let her know I'm coming," Julia said, hanging up and taking off her apron. "Mark, I have to go. Lily had an accident at school. She fell off the swings and hurt her arm. They're taking her to the hospital." "Go! Go!" Mark practically shoved her from behind the counter. "I'll handle things here." Julia rushed to the break room for her bag, heart pounding. Accidents happen all the time, she told herself, but the word hospital echoed ominously in her mind. She dashed out of the cafe and nearly collided with someone entering, Nathan. "Julia, what's going on? You look terrified." "Lily, she had an accident at school. They said her arm might be injured. I'm headed to the hospital." "I'm coming with you," he said without hesitation. "My car's right here." Julia didn't protest. At that moment, Nathan's presence felt like a relief, not a complication. The Ferrari weaved through traffic swiftly, though Nathan drove carefully, aware of Julia's anxiety. "What exactly happened?" he asked, trying to keep her focused. She fell off the swing, landed on her side. It sounds like she might have broken her arm. Julia took a shaky breath. The principal said she's conscious but crying a lot. Kids are resilient, Nathan said, trying to sound calmer than he felt. But worry was etched on his face. Julia glanced at him. Odd how, in just a month, he'd become so ingrained in their lives that having him there in this crisis felt not only natural but essential. "Thank you for coming with me," she whispered. He shot her a quick look, obviously surprised at her gratitude. "There's nowhere else I should be right now." The pediatric hospital was busy but not frantic. Nathan parked in the emergency bay despite the no parking sign. "Go ahead," he told Julia. "I'll find a proper spot and meet you inside." Julia ran to the reception, identifying herself as Lily's mother. A nurse guided her back, and Nathan showed up in the waiting area moments later. In a small exam room, Lily lay on a gurney, tears staining her red cheeks. A teacher from her school stood by, holding her hand. "Mommy!" Lily cried on seeing Julia, extending her good arm. "I'm here, sweetie." Julia hugged her carefully. "What happened?" Through sobs, Lily explained how she'd tried to jump onto a moving swing, lost her balance, and fallen awkwardly. Her right arm was swollen, turning purple near the wrist. "It hurts, Mommy," she whimpered. "It really hurts." "I know it does," Julia soothed, "but the doctors will help you. They're really good here." The teacher, relieved that Julia had arrived, mentioned the school had already filled out preliminary forms. A doctor would be in soon to examine Lily. "Did Nathan come too?" Lily asked, surprising both Julia and her teacher. "Yes, he drove me here. He's outside." "I want Nathan," Lily demanded, tears subsiding a bit. Julia hesitated, then nodded for the teacher to fetch him. When Nathan entered, Lily's face lit up despite her pain. "Nathan, I fell off the swings." "I heard," he replied gently, stepping to her bedside. "Sounds like you've had quite an adventure." "It wasn't fun," Lily declared, pouting. "It hurts." "I'm sure it does." He carefully took her good hand. "But you're being very brave. I'm impressed." Lily's sobs eased a bit. "Really?" "Absolutely. When I was your age and broke my arm playing soccer, I cried for hours." "You're much tougher than I was." Julia stood to the side, watching their interaction. Nathan's presence soothed Lily. Their natural bond was undeniable. A doctor walked in, introducing himself as Dr. Campbell. After examining Lily's arm, he recommended an X-ray. "Looks like a minor fracture," he explained, "but we'll confirm with images." While Lily was prepped for the X-ray, Nathan gently pulled Julia aside. "I'll handle the paperwork. You stay with her." "I can do it," Julia offered. "Julia," he said softly, "let me help." "Please?" Something in the way he asked, not as a CEO issuing orders, but as someone genuinely wanting to shoulder the burden, made Julia relent. "Thank you." The next few hours passed in a blur. The X-rays confirmed a minor fracture that wouldn't require surgery, only a cast for a few weeks. Nathan stayed with them the whole time, fetching water, talking to the doctors, distracting Lily with silly stories. When it was time to apply the cast, Lily grew anxious. "Will it hurt?" she asked, lower lip trembling. "A little," the doctor admitted, "but it'll be quick, then you can choose its color." "Can I hold your hand?" Nathan asked Lily. She nodded, gripping his hand tightly. Julia watched as her daughter clung to Nathan during the casting, her small knuckles white. He took it without complaint, telling funny anecdotes about when he broke his own arm, keeping Lily's mind off the pain. "I'm your #1 fan, you know," Lily whispered once it was over, looking at her bright pink cast. "And I'm yours," Nathan replied, gently kissing her forehead. The simple, caring gesture made tears sting Julia's eyes. Her guilt about the secret she kept weighed even heavier now. It was late afternoon when they were finally discharged. Lily, exhausted by the ordeal and the painkillers, fell asleep in the back seat of Nathan's car on the way home. "You're welcome to stay for dinner," Julia said as they arrived at her small apartment. "To thank you for everything. I don't know how I'd have handled today alone." "You would have handled it perfectly," Nathan said, carrying Lily inside, "but I'm glad I was there." They settled Lily into bed, propping her casted arm on a pillow as instructed. She didn't stir, just snuggled into the covers. In the tiny kitchen, Julia made a simple meal, pasta with homemade sauce, one of the few dishes she knew well. Nathan opened a bottle of wine he'd brought over a week ago. "To Lily's wrist," he toasted, raising his glass, "and to a quick recovery. And to your patience today," Julia added. "I've never seen her so calm in a tough situation. You really helped her. She's a special kid." Nathan sipped his wine, eyes never leaving Julia's. "Thank you for trusting me to be there." "I did trust you," she admitted, "and it's scary." "Why?" "Because for years it was just the two of us. I learned to handle everything alone. Fevers, nightmares, injuries." Julia sighed. "Then suddenly you're here and it feels right." Nathan covered her hand gently. "Is that so bad?" "It's complicated." "Life usually is." He smiled. "Remember in college when we got stuck in the library during that storm?" Julia smiled at the memory. "The generator failed, and we were in the dark for hours. You said it was the perfect place to be stuck, surrounded by books, and with me." "We were so young and foolish," she said, though her smile softened the words. "Maybe foolish," he agreed. "But what we felt was real." Silence fell again, filled with memories and possibilities. Julia studied Nathan's face, older now, faint lines at the corners of his eyes, yet the same man she had loved. "What do you want, Nathan?" she finally asked. "Truly." He took a moment, considering 6:14. "I want what we had, but better, more mature, more aware." He paused. "I want to wake up knowing you and Lily are part of my life. I want to hear about her day, help with her homework, be there for scrapes and triumphs." "You're describing a family," Julia said, heart pounding. "Yes," he admitted simply. "I am." Julia felt the weight of the secret she carried more heavily than ever. Nathan spoke of building a family, unaware he already had one. "There's something you're not telling me," he said, noticing her hesitation. "Something big." "Yes," Julia finally managed, "but I can't. Not yet." Nathan studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "When you're ready, I'll be here to listen." Just then, a sleepy voice called from the bedroom. "Mommy, is Nathan still here?" They both stood, heading to Lily's room. "We're here, sweetie," Julia said, sitting on the bed's edge. Lily blinked blearily, looking from her mother to Nathan. "My arm still hurts a little." "The doctor said that's normal," Julia reminded her. "It'll get better soon." "Nathan," Lily said, holding out her good hand, "can you read me a story? When you broke your arm, you said you got a special book." "When I broke my arm," he corrected with a grin, sitting on the opposite side of the bed. "Yes, my mom gave me an adventure book to cheer me up." "I want an adventure book too," Lily announced. "I can arrange that," he promised, stroking her hair. Julia watched, throat tight. He was already the father Lily never had. Loving, protective, present. The only problem was neither of them knew it yet. "I can stay until you fall asleep again," Nathan offered. Lily nodded, eyes already drooping. "Will you be here when I wake up?" Nathan glanced at Julia, silently asking permission. "He can come over for breakfast tomorrow," she suggested, surprising even herself with the offer. "Promise?" Lily insisted, looking at Nathan. "I promise," he said. "I'll bring special pancakes for a brave girl with a broken arm." Satisfied, Lily closed her eyes, drifting off again almost immediately. Julia and Nathan lingered on either side of the bed, watching the small figure between them. There was something deeply intimate about that moment, a glimpse of what might have been, or what might still be. "She has your eyes," Julia whispered, unable to stop herself. Nathan looked surprised. "You think so? I always thought she looked like you." "She does in many ways," Julia conceded. "But the eyes—" She trailed off, feeling she'd said too much. He didn't respond immediately, just continued gazing at Lily with a thoughtful expression. "I'll stay until she's fully asleep," he finally said. "Then I'll head home, but I'll come back with those pancakes, as promised." Julia nodded, leaving the room. "Thank you for everything today." "No need to thank me." His gaze was intense. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." As she exited, Julia knew hiding the truth was growing harder. That truth hovered between them like a ghost, unseen but undeniably present. And every day that passed, every moment like tonight, made it clearer she couldn't keep it a secret much longer. 2 weeks went by since Lily's accident. Her arm was healing well, and she proudly sported the pink cast, collecting signatures from friends at school, from Mark and Rose, and of course from Nathan, who had drawn a small Ferrari next to his name. Nathan's presence in their lives had only intensified. He was there for breakfast almost every morning, joined them for dinner often, and helped Lily with her homework. He fit into their daily routine so well, it was almost frightening. On this Sunday morning, while Lily still slept, Julia busied herself making coffee in their tiny kitchen. Nathan was set to arrive later, planning to take them to the Science Museum. An exhibit on dinosaurs had Lily thrilled. Glancing at the modest street outside, Julia couldn't ignore how different it was from Nathan's life. Her cramped apartment might fit 5 times over inside his penthouse. Her monthly wage probably matched what he spent on a single business dinner. And yet, here he was, always at ease in her world so unlike his. But for how long? She murmured to herself. That question kept her awake at night. She no longer doubted Nathan's sincerity, but she feared reality might catch up with them. He'd remember he belonged to a world far bigger than hers. He'd realize he deserved better than a single mom harboring a secret. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. "Need to swing by my place first. Is 11 okay for the museum?" Julia replied, "Yes," feeling a slight pang of disappointment. It was silly. 11 was still early. They had the whole day, but she'd grown used to seeing him at breakfast. "Mommy, can I look for my dinosaur book? I want to show Nathan when he gets here." Lily was in the living room, her cast carefully propped on a cushion per the doctor's orders. "Sure, sweetie. I think it's in that box of books in your closet." Julia heard her rummaging in the closet, followed by the sound of something falling. "Lily, you okay?" "Yep," came the immediate reply. "Just a box fell over." "Found the book." When Julia went to check, she found Lily on the floor amid scattered papers and photos. It was Julia's memory box, usually kept at the back of the closet. "Sorry, Mummy," Lily said, looking contrite. "The box fell when I grabbed my book." "It's okay, honey. Just be careful with your arm." Julia knelt to gather up the scattered items, old college photos, notes, cards. "Who's this with you?" Lily asked, pointing to one photo. Julia picked it up with trembling hands. It was her and Nathan, 6 years younger, beaming on the lakeshore. A perfect day before it all changed. "That's Nathan," she answered quietly. Lily's eyes widened. "You already knew each other?" "Yes, from college." "Were you boyfriend and girlfriend?" Lily tilted her head, curiosity brimming. Julia hesitated, then decided on honesty. "We were." "Why did you break up?" Lily asked. "Sometimes people who care about each other still take different paths," Julia said simply. "But now you're together again," Lily concluded happily, as though solving a big puzzle. "Not exactly," Julia began, but Lily was already exploring another discovery. "What are these?" Lily held up a small bundle of envelopes tied with a red ribbon. Julia didn't recognize it at first. She carefully untied the ribbon, letters, at least a dozen, all addressed to her, with Nathan's name as the return sender. "They're letters," she told Lily, voice distant to her own ears. "People used to write these before cell phone messages. Can I see?" "Better not, honey. They're private." Julia patted Lily's hair. "Why don't you take your book to the living room while I tidy up?" Once Lily was gone, Julia sat alone with the letters. Her hands trembled as she opened the first envelope, dated 6 years ago, just months after they'd separated. "Julia, this is the 5th letter I've written, not knowing if any have reached you. Your phone is still off. No one can tell me where you went. It's like you vanished. My father passed away last week. The funeral was yesterday. I looked for you in the crowd the entire time, hoping you'd be there. I know it's irrational. You couldn't have known. But still I searched. I need you to understand what happened, why I stayed away for so long. It wasn't my choice, oh Julia, not ever. Please, if you're reading this, call me. My number's on the envelope. Love is Nathan. Julia opened another, sent a few months later. Julia, the investigators I hired found a lead. They say you might be on the West Coast. I'm flying there next week. Maybe it's insane, but I need to find you. The company consumes all my time, but I can't stop thinking about you. About us. About the future we planned. I still have the ring, you know, the one I bought to give you when I came back. I carry it every day, a reminder of what truly matters. Love, Nathan. Letter after letter, Julia discovered a reality she'd never suspected. Nathan had never forgotten her. He hadn't given up. He'd searched for her, possibly for years, while she'd hidden, convinced he'd abandoned her. The final letter was different. The envelope was crumpled, the writing hurried. Julia, this will be my last letter. After a year of searching, I must accept you don't want to be found. That you've moved on. That what we had meant more to me than it did to you. I'll cherish the memories of our time together, but I need to stop living in the past. I hope wherever you are, you've found the happiness I'm still searching for. Always yours, Nathan. Julia let the letters tumble onto her lap, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. All these letters, probably sent to her old address. When she moved in haste, she'd instructed her former landlady to forward only official documents. She never imagined Nathan would write. The doorbell rang, startling her. She quickly wiped her tears, putting the letters back into the box. "It's Nathan," Lily called from the living room, excited. "Coming," Julia answered, struggling to compose herself. She hid the box in the closet and took a deep breath, her heart pounding with the revelations. Nathan stood at the door, as impeccable as ever, but with a certain glow in his eyes. He held a gift bag and a bouquet of yellow lilies, Julia's favorite flower, something she'd casually mentioned weeks ago. "Morning," he greeted, offering her the flowers. "For you. They're beautiful," she said, fighting back the swirl of emotions. "Thank you. And this," he added, pulling a box from the bag, "is for our dinosaur expert." Lily rushed over, squealing happily when she found a dinosaur fossil excavation kit inside. "Wow, I can be a paleontologist, like in my book." She hugged Nathan with her good arm. "You'll be the best paleontologist ever," he said warmly. "Can I start now?" Lily asked, eyes gleaming. "After the museum," Julia said, smiling despite the emotional turmoil. "Go grab your jacket. We're leaving soon." Once Lily was out of earshot, Julia finally looked Nathan in the eyes. Something about him today felt different. There was a hint of tension. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes. No. Actually." He inhaled deeply. "We need to talk, but after the museum, I don't want to ruin Lily's day." Her heart lurched. Was this it? Had he realized he didn't belong here? "About what?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. "It's complicated, but I think it's good." He tried to smile. "I promise it's nothing you need to worry about." She didn't have time to press him. Lily returned, fully ready for their outing. The museum bustled with families enjoying the sunny Sunday. Lily led the way, practically dragging Nathan by his sleeve, pointing to each exhibit with unbridled excitement. "Look, Nathan, a real T-Rex skeleton. The biggest predator ever." "Actually," he corrected gently, "there were even bigger predators like Spinosaurus and Giganotosaurus." Her eyes lit up. "You know a lot about dinosaurs." "I read a few books last night," he admitted, glancing at Julia sheepishly. "I wanted to be prepared." Julia felt her heart tug at that. Nathan had spent the night studying dinosaurs just so he could keep up with Lily. As they toured the museum, Nathan's phone rang repeatedly. Each time he checked the screen, then put it away. "You don't have to ignore your calls because of us," Julia said when it rang the third time. "It's nothing urgent," he replied. "It seems urgent, given how often they're calling." Nathan sighed. "It's about an acquisition in Asia. We were supposed to finalize it today, but I asked them to postpone." "Postpone? Why?" "Because I promised Lily I'd bring her to the museum." He looked at the little girl, currently fascinated by a fossil exhibit. "And because I'd rather be here." "Nathan, if it's a big deal." "Every deal seems big when you're in the middle of it," he interrupted. "But there are more important things in life." His eyes met hers. Things it took me far too long to realize. The phone rang again. This time, he switched it off. "You're not going to answer?" Julia asked, startled. "No. The deal can wait until tomorrow, or next week." He shrugged. "Maybe it'll never happen. And you know what? I don't care." Julia stared at him, stunned. "But that could be millions of dollars." "Probably," he said, unbothered. "But what are a few million compared to a day with the two of you?" His matter-of-fact answer caught her off guard. This was the Nathan she'd known in college, the one who valued experiences over money, who preferred a spontaneous picnic to a fancy restaurant. "You really mean that?" she murmured. "I've never been more serious." He took her hand tentatively. "Julia, I learned the hard way that money can't buy happiness. I spent 6 years building an empire, feeling emptier by the day." He paused, eyes shining with sincerity. "Until I found you two again." Lily ran back at that moment, excited about the interactive fossil dig area, interrupting them once more. "Nathan, Mommy, they have real dinosaur eggs. Come see." He smiled, releasing Julia's hand to take Lily's. "Let's go see these eggs then." Julia followed, her heart brimming with emotion. The letters she'd read that morning, his decision to study dinosaurs, his willingness to pass on a major business deal, they all painted a picture she'd never imagined. He wasn't the cold, calculating billionaire she'd feared. He was still the Nathan she'd loved, only more mature and sure of his priorities. And it seemed his priorities were Lily and her. After the museum, they stopped by a nearby ice cream shop. Lily, exhausted but thrilled, licked her chocolate cone while rattling off all the cool things she'd learned. "Mommy, did you know Nathan once went on a real dinosaur dig in college? He saw real bones being dug up." Julia turned to Nathan in surprise. "Really?" "A summer program," he explained. "Nothing glamorous, mostly dusting dirt off bones. But yes, I saw some fossils come out of the ground." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "You never asked," he said simply. "There are a lot of things we still don't know about each other, Julia. 6 years is a long time." There was an intensity in his gaze that made her heart pound. "Yes," she whispered, "it is a long time." "Can I have more ice cream?" Lily cut in, oblivious to the undercurrent. "No, sweetheart. You've had enough sugar today," Julia said, checking the time. "Actually, we should get home. It's almost time for your bath." "But we're having so much fun," Lily complained. "We can have more fun another day," Nathan said soothingly. "The museum isn't going anywhere." On the drive back, Lily dozed off in the back seat, worn out from the excitement. "You said we needed to talk," Julia reminded him softly so as not to wake Lily. It seemed serious. Nathan kept his eyes on the road, his hands tightening on the wheel. "It is serious, but I'd rather do it when we're alone." "You're making me nervous?" He offered a small smile. "No need. It's a good thing, I think. At least I hope you'll see it that way." When they arrived, Nathan carried Lily inside, laying her gently on her bed. Julia watched him remove her shoes and tuck her in, gestures so simple yet filled with tenderness, the gestures of a father, though he didn't know it. In the living room, once Lily was settled, Nathan faced Julia. "Remember I said we needed to talk?" She nodded, heart thumping. "It's about the future," he said, stepping closer. "Ours? What do you mean?" "I got an offer to expand the company in Europe. It would mean moving to London for at least 2 years. Julia's heart sank. So that was it, the end she'd dreaded. Reality stepping in at last. "I see," she said, striving for calm. "That's a big opportunity." "I turned it down." Julia blinked. "What?" "I didn't just postpone it, like I did with Asia. I outright declined," Nathan said. "And it wasn't a hard decision." "But why?" "Because my life is here with you and Lily." He grasped her hands gently. "I'm not making the same mistake twice, Julia. I won't choose business over love, not again." Tears pooled in Julia's eyes. "Nathan, I can't ask you to give up opportunities for us." "You're not asking, I'm choosing." He squeezed her hands softly. "In fact, I'm thinking of opening a smaller branch here, something that lets me work less and have a real life." "A real life," she echoed, feeling a surge of hope. "With you. If you'll have me." He gazed at her, more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. That's what I want, Julia, if it's what you want too. Julia thought of the letters she'd found that morning. The boy who never gave up on her, searching so hard. The man standing before her now, who studied dinosaurs and walked away from million-dollar deals for a day at the museum. And she knew the time had come. She couldn't keep the secret any longer. Nathan deserved to know. Lily deserved it too. "There's something I have to tell you," she said at last, voice trembling. "Something I should have told you long ago." Nathan looked at her, patience and kindness in his eyes. "All right." "It's about Lily," she began, gathering her courage. "About who she really is." The future had given them a second chance. Now Julia had to be brave enough to claim it. Night had settled over the city. Lily was sound asleep in her room, her pink cast propped on a pillow, as the doctor recommended. In the small living room, Julia lit a single candle on the coffee table, more to steady her nerves than for lighting. Nathan watched her every move, patient and concerned. He sensed something major was coming. Julia had asked him to stay after Lily went to bed so they could talk. The seriousness in her voice had him uneasy. "Want some tea?" she offered, her voice betraying her nerves. "No, thanks," he replied gently, taking a seat on the couch. "Julia, what's going on? You're scaring me." Julia took a deep breath, sitting across from him in an armchair. Her hands shook slightly. "I have something to tell you," she began quietly. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Nathan leaned forward, aware of the weight of her words. "It's about Lily," Julia continued, voice low to avoid waking her daughter. In recent days, finding the letters, seeing Nathan's devotion, she realized she couldn't hide anymore. "About who she really is." "What do you mean?" He sounded apprehensive. She looked directly into those blue eyes, the very same eyes Lily had. "Lily is your daughter, Nathan." Silence fell, thick and tangible. Nathan sat motionless, as though frozen. His expression morphed from confusion to shock, then slowly to dawning realization. "My daughter?" he whispered, disbelieving. "Yes," Julia confirmed, tears welling up. "Our daughter." Nathan shot to his feet, pacing the small room before turning to stare at her again. "How? When?" His voice shook with warring emotions. Shock, joy, anger, confusion. "I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you left to care for your father," she explained, struggling for composure. "Remember the last phone call we had when I said we needed to talk?" Nathan closed his eyes, pained. "And I said I was busy, that I'd call you back." "You never did," Julia said. "I tried again a few days later, but your phone was off. Then your mother called me." "My mother?" He sounded stunned. "She said you were in crisis mode, your dad was worse, the company was near collapse." Julia swallowed. "That I was a distraction you didn't need." Nathan ran a hand over his face. "She had no right, and she didn't know it about the pregnancy." "No." "I hadn't told anyone, except my doctor." "Why didn't you persist, Julia? Why didn't you come to me?" "At first I was in shock, deciding what to do. Then, when I finally mustered the courage, you seemed so distant." She hesitated. "And honestly, I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "So many things. Afraid you'd think I was trapping you for money. Afraid you'd feel obligated to stay. Afraid I couldn't measure up to the new world you were entering." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I was young and scared, Nathan. I made what I thought was the best decision for all of us." Nathan sank onto the couch, his expression a swirl of hurt and wonder. "She has my eyes," he breathed. "I always noticed, but never imagined." "Yes," Julia said softly. "And your smile, when she's truly happy, she even furrows her brow like you do. All these years." He shook his head, the magnitude of it hitting him in waves. "All those lost moments." "I'm so sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. "I know it can't make up for all the time you missed, but please believe I didn't do it to hurt you. I thought I was protecting everyone. And after things settled down, why didn't you try to find me then?" As time passed, it got harder. "We built a life here. Lily was happy. And seeing your success in the media, I assumed you'd moved on. That we would only complicate your perfect life." Nathan let out a hollow laugh. Perfect life, if you only knew how empty I've felt all these years. Silence wrapped around them again, laden with revelations and regret. Why now? He asked at last. Why tell me now? Julia looked at him, tears slipping freely. Because I found your letters, the ones I never got. It made me realize you really did search for me, that you never just walked away. And I see how you are with Lily, how naturally you care for her, how you belong in her life. Because I do belong, he said, voice choked with emotion. I always did. He stood again, walking to the window. Julia let him have the space. She owed him that. I'm furious, he said finally, not turning around, furious about missing so many precious moments. Her first steps, her first words, her birth. I know, Julia replied, accepting his anger. You have every right. I'm also furious with myself, he continued, facing her at last, for letting work, the company, and my dying father's expectations overshadow you. For not searching harder, not pushing more, for accepting your disappearance too easily. We both made mistakes, Julia offered softly. Yes, he inhaled deeply, his features softening. And through it all, I have a daughter. A stunned, joyous grin lit his face. A wonderful, smart, vibrant daughter. Yes, you do, Julia said, relief flooding her. And she's going to be thrilled when she finds out you're her dad. How do we tell her? Nathan asked, reality settling back in. I don't want to confuse her or upset her. Slowly, Julia advised. She already adores you. I think part of her already knows. Kids have instincts we'll never understand. Nathan nodded, thinking hard. I want to be in her life, Julia. Really in it. Not just the nice guy who shows up sometimes, but as her father. Everything that entails. That's what I want too, Julia agreed. She deserves you in her life. Always did. Nathan moved closer, sitting beside her on the couch. With a gentle touch, he took her hands. What about us? He asked quietly. Where does this leave us? Julia stared at their joined hands. I don't know. There's a lot to rebuild. Trust that was lost. But the feelings are still there, Nathan said. At least for me, they never went away. For me, either, Julia admitted. They were just buried, shielded. He squeezed her hands softly. Then we can figure it out together, one step at a time. Right now, Lily is what matters most. Can I show you something? Julia asked, rising from the couch. Without waiting for an answer, she disappeared into the bedroom and returned with a small box. From inside it, she pulled out a slim album. Photos from when I was pregnant and Lily's early year, she explained, handing it to Nathan. Not a lot, I couldn't afford to print them all, but these are special. With trembling fingers, Nathan opened the album. The first photo showed Julia, visibly pregnant, a shy smile on her lips. 6 months along, she clarified. That's when I finally agreed to take pictures. Before that, I was still coming to terms with everything. He turned the page, finding a picture of a newborn baby, tiny and red, wrapped in a pale pink blanket. Lily, he breathed, touching the photo reverently. So small. 7 pounds, 1 ounce, Julia supplied. She came a week early, after 16 hours of labor. Nathan flipped through more pages, devouring each image of milestones he'd missed. Julia observed his face shifting through wonder, sadness, happiness, and regret. I want to know her, he said, closing the album. Really know her, as my daughter. You will, Julia promised. We can start tomorrow if you want. I want to see her now, Nathan said, eyes pleading. She's asleep, but can I just look at her, knowing she's mine? Julia nodded. She understood. Together, they tiptoed to Lily's room, the door ajar. The soft hallway light cast gentle shadows on the walls. Lily slept peacefully. Brown hair splayed across the pillow, the cast carefully positioned. Nathan approached her bed, lowering himself to his knees. With infinite tenderness, he brushed her cheek with his fingertips. My daughter, he whispered, raw emotion in his voice. My little girl. Standing in the doorway, Julia let tears slip down her face. She had imagined this moment so many times, Nathan discovering his paternity, accepting and cherishing it. "I'll make up for every lost day," he murmured to the sleeping child. "I'll be here for you now, always." At last, he rose, eyes glistening but filled with a fierce determination. "Thank you," he said to Julia, voice steady despite his emotion, "for taking such good care of her, for bringing her into the world, for being an amazing mother." "She made it easy," Julia answered with a gentle smile. "She's the best part of my life." "Our life now," Nathan corrected, extending a hand. Julia took it, their fingers intertwining. Together, they lingered a moment longer to watch Lily's peaceful face before quietly exiting the room. The future opened before them, uncertain, filled with challenges, but also ripe with possibilities. A family was being formed that night, not in a conventional way, not without scars or regrets, but with real love and the promise of better days. A perfectly imperfect family, born from mistakes and second chances. A real family. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like, because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.